Welcome to another episode Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Summer Rose.
Hi.
Man, that is really a jazz song. You got to make an album.
Oh, if I had that talent, I would.
Just
Already would have happened, actually.
play a saxophone like endless summer nights. Ba-na-na-na-na, na-na-na-na.
Maybe
But
you should write it for me.
definitely, I could do the promotion for it for
Great.
sure. Well, Summer, tell me a little bit about yourself, and I already know that from talking with Samuel and everything too, the other side of Campfire Conspiracies as well.
Yes. Yep. So that is the podcast me and my partner Samuel do is Campfire Conspiracies. Really, the idea behind of it, yeah, campfire tales. Obviously, our favorite conspiracies. We love just talking shit about different theories we have on this and that and whatever. And that's why we brought in a competition element where we both bring up tales and our listeners get to choose who they prefer.
Who has a
So far, it
better
seems to
ghost
be,
story?
yeah, ghost story, whatever the topic is. Yeah, so far I'm winning. Really happy about that.
It's because you got that edge to you. Like Sam's just sitting there like aliens, they're fun. They come from, these weird, strange places. But then like you're just like, look, let me tell you something about fucking Bigfoot, okay? I'm a
Yeah.
level with you. He will kick any alien's ass. I'm pretty sure the aliens, if Bigfoot does exist, the aliens probably took Bigfoot.
Oh, they would. Yeah.
We lost
No,
a
I
great treasure that day.
uh, but yeah, I mean, we're Australians, so we love the underdog, and that is my worry with my lovely partner is he will always be the underdog.
Yeah, if he comes up with a good UFO tale, I mean, you got to think what's going on too now. That's a prime focus for him is to start talking about the fact that we finally released that there are evidence of aliens.
Mm.
I want to still see the evidence of Bigfoot. I've done topics on before I did this podcast Out of the Blank, I did Fill in the Blank, which was basically the complete opposite. We focused on specific topics. I'd have my buddies
Yeah.
come on. I'd be like, what are you interested in? And my buddy's like 19th century Victorian surgery. That's where I
Oh.
knew about the plague doctor mask he was talking about. I ended up studying so much
Ah,
about it and
yeah.
everything. But we would just come on and talk about these topics. And my buddy was like, I'm into conspiracy, cryptids, all that type of stuff. So I was like, all right, let's look
Mm-hmm.
up the wild, wild world of cryptids. And you
Yeah.
end up finding Bigfoot, El Chupacabra, obviously the main ones,
Oh,
New Jersey Devil, for instance.
great one.
Mothman was very new to me, surprisingly. Uh,
Yeah.
there were a lot of them out there, and to
Mm.
see the fact that what people could make up in their heads or what could be real, I
Mm.
mean, the one that really stuck out in my mind was there was one called the Pope Licking Monster. Have you ever heard of this one?
That one I'm afraid I haven't heard of.
It is the only cryptid with a death count. And the reason
Ooh,
why
do
is
tell.
its lair is in Pennsylvania, lair with the
Mm-hmm.
capital emphasis on lair. Um, but it's under technically a bridge, and the bridge is about a mile and a half of nothing but train tracks on this bridge. There's no area just for a train to come through. So
Right.
the only reason this cryptid has a death count is because couples, people, kids would all walk these train tracks and they would sit there and listen, or they would try and find sounds or try and find evidence. Next thing you know, a train would come by and you don't have enough time to get off the bridge. So there's no way
Mm.
but down. So people would jump thinking they could survive, wouldn't make it. There was one account of a guy and his girlfriend that had been walking on this bridge and a train had come, and the girl was killed, but he hung on by his arm basically, and he got his other arm torn off. So
Oh.
this is why this was like a big situation. People wanting to believe this thing was real, and I thought it was going to be something like there's a monster that when the Pope is sleeping, it licks him. There's constantly
Yeah.
like the awkward feeling you get if your dog starts licking your foot while you're like sleeping or something. You're like, whoa, that's really uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I thought it was, but no, it was just this idea of like a New Jersey Devil style monster, like his
Mm.
creepy cousin, I would say.
Creepy cousin. Yeah.
Hmm.
Wow. Oh, there. You can never find out all the cryptids that are out there in the world. There's too many of them.
Which one's your favorite out of them all?
Well, interesting that you do bring up Bigfoot. Yowies, as I said earlier, I love them. I love yowies. They are pretty much, yeah, the Australian Bigfoot. Our Aboriginal, they would have it in their Dreamtime stories of these Yowies. Really kind of peaceful, do not have that much of a death count, though there are some tales that can become quite vicious if you get onto their land. But honestly, yeah, it's more of that when you're walking alone in the woods, you might find a Yowie.
You know, I do love Bigfoot a lot, but I think Yeti is probably my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that they look from what I've seen, like just the way they describe them in a movie or something, they just seem a little bit more badass. Bigfoot seems like a type you want to see.
Definitely.
Like Bigfoot feels like a type you want to go trip like psilocybin mushrooms with in the forest or something.
Mm,
Like that'd be fun. Like the
yeah.
Tenacious D version of Bigfoot.
Yeah.
But the Yetis just seem more badass. I mean, when I had this podcast that I was talking about with, I had a group of my friends in here. We were all talking about like which would, we're doing a topic on the Yeti, and then the Bigfoot got brought in. And then eventually I was like making a video game out of these creatures like Mike Tyson's Knockout or something, or Punch Out. I was like,
Mm,
imagine if the Yeti and Bigfoot went together in a boxing match. How would that go? And then I was back and forth crap talking between all me and my buddies about, like, they were like, oh, Bigfoot would win. I'm like, bullshit. Because if you listen to the Yeti stories, um, it's about like they would hurl boulders at Sherpas that would guide these people up the mountains and knock them
mm,
off. And you got to think like Bigfoot, there was no accounts of that. We see like this gorilla, like Harry and the Hendersons walking across screen, these fake
exactly.
pictures. And then it
Yeah.
makes you think like what you say about the Australian version of the Bigfoot. There's accounts literally before internet, before telephone, before all these types of things of North American Bigfoot. And then in the Tibetan mountains, the exact same descriptions. And there was no way that they could communicate to each other. So it made it start to
Yeah.
think it's not just one creature, but a race, a species of hominids.
Definitely. Same with a few different creatures, including dragons. So many different cultures have their different ideas of what a dragon is, and definitely the same with different ape men, Bigfoot, Yeti, and then different personalities these different cryptids have, even though they follow kind of the same thing. Um, Loch Ness monster. There is a lot of eel, massive eel kind of cryptids from different parts of the world too. It's I have a few different reasons to believe that's actually not to do with them being real. I actually think it has more to do with this idea that we're probably a lot more connected than we actually think we are.
Hmm.
And this is going far back.
I mean, you got to think there's truth to that. If we're more connected than we think we are, I mean, the fact is we all have this caring and compassionate side to us when somebody or
Mm,
all of us are in like a threat or in danger. Maybe
yeah,
there is something like it's hard to believe that what your actions you do don't affect somebody else down the road. That kind of brings into the point of me trying to hire a detective to figure out why the hell, like, I don't know, my car breaks down. Like, is somebody like flushing a toilet somewhere and it's just a
yeah.
cosmic effect? My car just breaks down. I don't understand.
Wouldn't it be great if we could afford to just every time we wanted a question answered about something in our lives, just detective? Could we just get a detective in here
Oh man, I don't know about that because I'd be asking some weird ass shit.
now?
I don't think I want to know the answers to a lot of that stuff. I mean, it's the same thing. Like, if you could read minds, would you want to?
Oh hell
Probably
no.
not, because people would be talking so much shit that you. But I mean,
Mm-hmm.
everybody says it now if they got a Twitter. So I guess we, you know, go from there. But I mean, when it comes to talking about like all these cryptids and things too, what
Mm,
have you seen that has really proven to you, or what have you read that tries to sway the audience from Samuel's side to your side? I mean, you got to,
mm,
I'm already hooked in, but I do want to see a little bit of like, what accounts do we have? I mean, we searched the
mm.
Loch Ness, we didn't find anything.
Yeah.
Mostly then they bring up things like, oh, it's just because while we're searching for it, it's also moving around us slowly, so we can't be able to
Mm-hmm.
catch it. And I'm like, well, then drain the fucker. And it's like, oh, we can do that, but then that would mess up the area. Now it just
Oh,
seems like
and
it.
there might actually be underground canals that he can leave from too.
There we go.
Yeah, yeah.
They, that's the best part about like these types of situations, even with Roswell. The weirdest thing is to see how the town has reacted to that folklore, to that story. The
Mm,
same reason with like in Virginia, or not, yeah, it's Virginia with Mothman. They have a
Hmm.
statue of Mothman himself. I have buddies that would
Yes.
take pictures next to the thing. Like the town capitalizes on that. Roswell, they have a McDonald's in the shape of a UFO.
Love
Loch
this.
Ness is all about like Nessie, come down here and see Lassie, Lassie. It's like there you
Mm.
go. It's population. It's the reason why they keep going there.
Yeah. And that's actually what I love. So, as far as your question, I actually don't believe in a lot of these cryptids. I want to believe, but yeah, as you said, there isn't a lot of facts, but I love stories. And if you believe in something enough, then isn't that worth it? Isn't that worth discussing, theorizing whether it's true or not? I want to listen to that still, whether I believe it or not.
Well, people believe in ghosts, and it's like, how is that true? But it's also the same thing. There was a Oh man, you guys are bringing out the government project and program side of me. I never ever get to
Good.
talk about. I love it. There was this thing that happened a long time ago. It was these people would sit in a room. It was a government project, like kind of like a little test to see that if you believed in something hard enough, could you actually conjure it up and make it real? It was a
Yep.
way of trying to create a ghost by using a Ouija board as well to be able to communicate with it. So all these people believed in this ghost that they had created, made a fake backstory to it, made it so believable. I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but
The idea, yes, that it
yeah.
was a project, no.
But what these people would do was about six people. They all believed in this thing, and they put a Ouija board down, and the thing started to move, and everyone's sitting there like,
Hmm.
"Oh, you're moving it, you're moving it, you're moving it." But it was the weirdest thing because at one point, everybody got a flash in their mind, like literally, like if you shut your eyes and you saw like a face in the inside of your eyelids,
Hmm.
that's what everyone saw at the exact same moment. But it was involuntary. They didn't blink; it just popped right in their eyes like that when they all backed away. And next thing you know, like it was technically considered a failure. But that's a weird thing to happen, though. But that's a lot of what seeing believing is, but also believing in something so much that you can conjure up its existence. The same thing with
Yeah.
Bigfoot. When you start doing things like that, your brain's going to start tricking you to look for these types of signs, to look for these types of
Yes.
things. But that's the fun of it. It's why they're campfire stories. Shameless plug for
Yes.
Campfire Conspiracies.
Thank you.
But
Thank you.
it's the idea of sitting on a log, somebody takes a flashlight, puts it under their face, or like puts it like under their chin, lights up,
Hmm.
let me tell you about a spooky tale, and you're just by the campfire, and you're like just listening to these accounts of these crazy imagination. And it can make you believable. I mean, if you're a kid listening to this, you're like, Mike Myers is real, life isn't fair, he's gonna kill me in my sleep, I gotta have a nightlight on because nobody can hurt me if the nightlight's on. Like that whole thing, it makes you go to that extensive because you're
Hmm.
anticipating the fear, but you're loving the idea of it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, completely. Yeah, so I'm a big believer in sort of this collective unconscious. So with that project, I wouldn't be surprised if they're talking about it so much and they're actually forming this idea as a group. And that's how that kind of phenomenon would happen. I believe it genuinely happened. I just don't think it was ghosts. And I
Damn,
don't think they actually created anything other than, I mean, our brains are so damn powerful that I want to believe that would be so amazing. But I think it was more that they just, in their mind, that illusion happened.
I want to toss out a high thought.
All right.
So I'm not stoned, but I'm on very, very low amount of sleep. So it's like being stoned.
Mm-hmm.
Um, all right, so my buddy has a sleeping issue just like I do.
All right.
If Sam, if you're listening, I want to say this to you too. So make sure you got your cans on, your ears. Okay. So me, I don't sleep. I maybe can get 30 minutes or so, and I'll feel like I slept 20 hours. I mean, to the point where you
Oh,
wake up and
wow.
there's just drool all over me. I'm like, oh my God. Like, I remember this just happened like last week. Think I hadn't slept in 3 days. I slept 30 minutes. I woke up and I thought it was like the next day. I thought I slept a full day. Um, could be. It
Damn.
depends on what world we're living in. But my other
Mm.
buddy, he has a problem where he sleeps with his eyes open. So,
Oof. Yep.
yeah, you got to warn somebody when that
You
happens.
do.
I spent the night at his house and I'm like talking to him and he's sitting in his chair like this, like all like kind of like looks like he's just kind of staring at the gaming screen. And I'm sitting there like talking, like kind of like looking down, just kind of like, just talking. And I'm like, why isn't he answering me? He's let me go on for like an hour now. I'm like, Chris, Chris. And he goes, huh? And I'm like, what the fuck was that? He goes,
Mhm.
what? He's like, you don't know I sleep with my eyes open? I was like, no, fucking warn
How would I know that?
somebody. Yeah, like, how am I going to know that? I've never seen you sleep. I don't go and watch you. But it's funny because it decided for me that I was going to look up these things that we would always experience with our problems with our sleep. And it went into this whole giant thing, learning about the hypnic jerk, which is like that sudden jerk you get where like you jerk awake because you feel
Mhm.
like you just fell or something, felt like you fell back
Yep.
into your body. So I came up with a weird theory, so I'm going to run it by you. It's just my own
Please
thoughts.
do.
It's nothing I believe in, but I think it's funny to intangulate, I guess, that idea. uh when you go to sleep, there's a thing called rapid eye movement. So
Yeah.
if you look at someone with rapid eye movement, when their eyelids are shut, their eyes are constantly moving around, searching. It looks like they're searching for something, like they're looking like, where's
Yeah.
my keys? Where's my keys? That whole thing. So when that happens, I look at, if you ever seen a movie about an alternate dimension, it's a doorway is usually the way in. And you open it up, and there's like a
Mhm.
water world. Maybe those are our dreams. And what's happening is when our eyes are going through rapid eye movement that lasts probably about an hour or maybe
Mhm.
less, depending on how fast you can slip into that part of your dream state. Um, is your brain searching for another doorway, another alternate universe that we consider a dream? And what happens is
Right.
when you experience a hypnic jerk, that is your body coming back to this reality because your brain was slipping away.
We
Maybe
went too
that's the
deep.
reason why people pass away in their sleep sometimes, is because they
Mm.
can't get back from whatever, another plane of existence, that dream state. And I threw that idea out there, and he just looked at me. He's like, "You need to go to fucking bed." But I was like, "Isn't that cool though? Like that would be
Yes.
so interesting."
Yeah, I mean, people are out there talking about certain dreams or past lives or predictions of the future. So why would that be an invalid, yeah, thought? That's great. I love it.
I'm gonna run it by some scientists. Neil deGrasse Tyson, if you're listening, sir, I want you to come onto the podcast and tell me why it's all bullshit. Oh man, like I mean, I think, where did the initial inspiration, first of all, for these cryptids or just like this kind of idea come from in the first place? Because you don't just did you end up just falling into it later, like in life? I mean, I feel like this is something just from being told like campfire stories. Like when you're a little
Yeah.
kid, that fantasy aspect, some people lose it and some people really, really hold on to it. And it's what I like to say, it really helps level you out in a world like today where there's so much drama, there's so much
Hmm.
work, there's so much kind of pain, there's so much all this, even though there's the good moments, but having that imagination side, you don't want that
Yeah.
ever to be gone.
It's a bit of escapism, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just to chill and, yeah, talk shit about this or that. Why not? And so, yeah, as far as where I kind of got this, when I was a little girl, I thought I had these experiences, including seeing a yowie at my local school. Um, and as I got older, joined the Scouts, and oh my God, just the amount of different stories you hear in the Scouts. Loved it. And that also came into, I love talking around a campfire. So when me and Sam met and we actually had that same desire to do that kind of thing, just seemed a natural progression to tell everyone else about our crazy theories too.
Same. When I was a little girl, I had an encounter with the what there was an old school TV program, The X Files. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Oh my God, come on,
Okay.
of course I have.
I saw the New Jersey Devil one when I was probably 12 years old. And
Mm-hmm.
the weirdest thing about it was, which I'll even talk a little bit about the video, and you can, if you've seen the same one I have, you can agree to how scary that video is. Um, my grandparents live out in the country, a very rural area. And this is the time I was first starting to go over there. Like I was like, my mom was like, fine, go over to your grandparents' house to spend the night or something. So we live in this old
Yeah.
farmhouse, and I had a creaky bunk bed. So my room was dark, and the blinds were basically right where I was sleeping, like right up on the wall. So I could look up and see in under the blinds, look up into the night sky. And I
Right.
remember turning on the TV, putting the volume down on zero because I wasn't allowed to be up. I figured out how to adjust the sleep timer, all that bullshit. And I remember X Files came on, and it was talking about a story of a woman that was giving birth, and they have the live like replay, like the characters playing the scene. And
Mm-hmm.
the guy goes, and she was giving birth, and it was something more than just a baby. It came out with hooves, and it had horns, and flew up the chimney. And then I was like, whoa. And then I'm watching it
Mm.
and they're talking about all these people that would encounter these stories. And I remember not even a couple weeks before, I had seen Jeepers Creepers, I think it is, with the giant, like, demon, whatever you want to call that boogeyman monster that would just hop on the window and the glass and start pointing at kids to tell them to come out so we can. So that's what I pictured the New
Mhm.
Jersey. I'm getting goosebumps even fucking talking about this. But that I remember when I was watching that X-Files program, that's what I thought the New Jersey Devil was, not this goat thing. So I'm
Right.
sitting there thinking like, oh my God. And then there was they do like the kind of like one day Jim was taking out his trash and he heard a weird stumbling sound at 2 o'clock in the morning. Immediately I'm sitting there thinking, why the hell are you taking your trash out at 2 o'clock in the morning? Go inside, eat some cookies, cook up some hot chocolate, whatever. But he was like, when Jim approached his trash cans, he saw two red glowing eyes in the distance. And then they had the two eyes pop up in the video. And I'm sitting like, holy shit. And then I start feeling like
Mm.
something's looking at me through the blinds. And I'm sitting
Oh
there
yeah.
like looking up. And I mean, I'm like I said, I'm probably gonna stop talking about it right now because I'm already getting super bad goosebumps. But it freaked me out. And like when you're a kid, and it's dark out or something, or like your room's dark or something, you start doing what I also researched when I was researching a lot about sleep is these auditory and eye kind of visual hallucinations, also known as shadow
Yeah.
people. You know, you
Mhm.
start feeling like somebody's walking in the corner of your room.
Yeah.
And I just that's where I start listening to that stuff. That's why whenever I hear the words cryptid, whenever I hear these types of things, I love listening to where people come across these types of things because it brings you back to a point in your life when it was like you look at it now like, oh, there's no freaking way. But I guarantee to you, at nighttime, even when, like when I'm going to the gym at like 1 in the morning or something, if I'm walking to my car, I start thinking like, imagine if Bigfoot just came out and fucking decked me right now. Like that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Like it's that thought. It's
It's
like
almost like we're addicted to feeling fear. We
yeah.
just we have to think about all these different things and get that thrill.
We just turned it into a different form with talking about like ISIS.
The things we kind of latch on to definitely have to do with our own different fears, and we all have different kind of ones that we've latched on usually from yeah when we were little kids. So for
Yeah.
some it'll be Bigfoot, um, uh, this idea of a foreign evil like ISIS, whatever. But yeah, it is kind of this addiction to fear. We need to figure out things as soon as possible to protect ourselves.
So when we talk about with the kind of I guess cadence that you both kind of have, what do you
Mm.
feel like even when you're doing a topic or something, do you ever feel like you're listening to him talk and you start to believe a little bit more into what his stuff is, like kind of wanting him to win? Or do you feel like if he starts to feel like he's got
Hell
the upper
yes.
edge, you're like, all right, I got to knock him down a peg?
Both. I mean, yeah, I definitely want to knock him down a peg, but yeah, we all have just that story part of it. We all have these great ideas, and if he's got a good one, of course I'm going to want to hear all about it and then knock him dead.
It's funny because like you guys doing it over like a challenge or something too. Like someone has to dye their hair. Like that's some scary
Yeah.
stuff right there too. Like and definitely even if I'm listening to it, like, man, I really believe your ghost story, but at the same time, there's no fucking way I'm dyeing half my head this type of color right now.
Oh, we just thought, I mean, everyone is giving each other bad hairdos in lockdown, so we just figured let's just enjoy that. Go
Hey,
for
you're
it.
looking at one of them right now. I mean, I did this all on my own, so it's like, you know, all I say is, look, if you know how to shave your head, shave your head. If you don't, just wait it out. It's nice though,
Yeah.
because when I get in the shower and it's that water hits it, it's like, ow, that's very hot. Ah, yeah, that's a good observation, Robbie. Give me a round of applause. Well, when we're talking about even with cryptids too, which one do you feel like is the most bullshit? I mean, come on, the one that's like I can't fall into this one at all, even if it seems like
Hmm.
it's an interesting one. Like Thunderbird for me, I'm just like, come on now, really?
Um, look, honestly, the first thing that comes to mind is we, as Australians, obviously love a laugh, and we came up with drop bears. Have you ever heard of drop bears?
I think I have.
Yeah, I just love the ones that have obviously been made up just to scare people. And drop bears, the evil koala. Love it.
Okay, yeah, I know what you're
That would
talking
be my
about.
favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's that
that
one,
would be
and
my favorite.
same thing with chupacabras too. But that's what the Yeti used to be about as well. A lot of people don't know that when they would talk about the Yeti, they used to scare children like they would with the
Mm,
boogeyman. They would
yeah.
tell the children that if they weren't in bed at a certain time, if they'd eat all their dinner, or if they didn't do something, that the Yeti would come down from the mountains. And there was accounts of them stealing 13-year-old girls, especially, and taking them off
Oh,
into the mountains. Like, what the fuck? Just because I
yeah.
didn't eat my fruits and vegetables for dinner or something, you're gonna take me off into the mountains and do whatever with me? I'm like, I'd rather get hit by a boulder like that Sherpa. Like, that was always the thing. Like, were they really actually scared of something that was out there? Was there something out there? Or were they just too lazy to hike my ass up the damn mountain at 2 o'clock in the morning?
All of the above. I think, I mean, for a lot of them, it does come from some kind of reality. Like, for that Yowie experience I had, it turned out it was a man who was just hairy and always in the woods, but there actually was a dude in the woods. There was actually some truth to that. Um, Vampires and everything, it turns out actually there was maybe this disease that could have explained it. So there's always some kind of touch, just a touch of truth.
Damn, son, you pale as hell. Go outside. It's like,
Yeah.
I would, but I would turn into dust. It's like, yeah, because you're so ashy. Now I'm a
I do.
vampire. Sure. Sure.
I get that all the time as an Australian, and yeah, pasty as. Yeah, then I must be a vampire. Doesn't.
That's
Why would you be an Australian without a tan?
that's so true. But oh my God, I've talked to so many people from Australia. The main thing I was always worried about, I was like, because I always ask them, like, how big is it a problem that everything in Australia can kill you? And they're like, it's not that bad. I'm like, I believe it. It's probably not that bad. It's a lot of just false information we get from other places. Same reason why America's like got this distorted view too. But the one thing you guys have that's so freaking dangerous that people don't understand. Well, actually, two things. Koalas are
Mhm.
fucking evil. Um, Kangaroos, they will beat
Yeah.
the living shit out of you and they will kill you. Just because I remember my very first podcast with an Australian guy, me and him just started going into this giant thing about if you owned a giant mansion, what's the best way to get a security team to cover it? I said just train a bunch of kangaroos that were trained under Mike Tyson just to fuck up everything in the area because nobody's breaking to your house when Wallaby Jack throws a fucking uppercut.
That you don't want Mike Tyson. You want to kick like you are. You want to kickboxer because they are all about the
Mirko
legs. That's how
Krokop,
they can.
the only kickboxer I know.
Okay. In which case, I love that. I love it.
But I mean, it's interesting too, because like where somebody's legends or where someone's conspiracies or cryptids, whatever comes from, is completely different depending on where you are from. Um,
Hell yeah.
Such
It's a big
as,
part of our cultures.
yeah, and I mean, it's
Yeah.
that's the whole idea of being fantasy stories and being legends and monsters. These things that give us this idea, this fantasy aspect, because it's what not only scares us, but
Mm,
it's enjoyable. I mean,
yeah.
if you've ever had a family moment where you have sat there by a fire, you have sat there, just lying in bed, read me a story, and they start to tell you and spin this yarn, this thing, bits and pieces of information and stuff they picked up through their own childhood or through their own life, and turning it into their own way to fit your narrative. Um,
Mm,
the movie Bedtime Stories with Adam Sandler,
yeah.
that whole thing. It was you were trying to make the kids happy. You were trying to find something that would make them go into this thing and have this fantasy about life that was enjoyable so the world wasn't so tasteless. Because I mean,
Mm,
as an adult, you understand, like it does get bland. It does a little bit. Sometimes I do want to revert back to when I was a kid and be like, I wish I was a kid where I didn't have to worry about bills, didn't have to worry about
mm.
gas, didn't have to worry
I
about
didn't know what
actual
taxes were.
yeah, real freaking world problems. I mean, the biggest problem I had was that someone used the what is it, the champagne crayon in the 48 crayon pack. Because I was like, I can't
Right.
fucking buy another crayon of this color. I have to go buy a whole nother pack. Champagne. That and I think it was burgundy something. Something really strange. I think it's
Mm.
gonna kill me now that I think about it. Yeah.
Interesting that it's champagne on a kid's crayon.
Yeah, champagne on it's a pink color, but they called it champagne. Didn't taste like it. Didn't taste anything like it at all. Hey, look, if you didn't eat your crayons when you were a kid, then you never lived. Okay, that's where I like to think
Yeah.
all my creative, colorful thoughts come from.
I love it.
The
Yes.
one, the one where I look off the top of a building and it says, "Just jump, dude. You can fly. You can fly." It's like, I don't know. I don't know about that one. I had some stranger offer me candy one time, and that didn't go well at all. Welcome to my podcast, Summer.
I love it.
Well, even when we're talking about everything, the conspiracy side of things, the
Mm.
I guess the camaraderie that you guys have of stuff too. What have you find that is a conspiracy theory that he has maybe shot off to you? That you just like, could that be real? Like, could that be something?
Um, no.
No? Look,
Don't think so.
we were talking about cults, and the funny thing is, I don't know how into the like the cult stuff you are. Are you interested in any of that type of stuff?
I'm interested, as in keep the freak away from me. Yeah,
Yeah, that type.
yeah.
There was one, have you ever heard, I think it's called Heaven's Gate?
I've heard of it, but honestly, don't know much about it.
All these people that were believed that if they drank this Kool-Aid or killed themselves, that they would go to this like other place. It was led by like this Christian minister named John
Mm-mm-mm.
Applewhite or something. It's either that one or the People's Temple, but all I know is that they found these bodies in like it was like 15, 17 something people in this house in
Mm.
Texas with plastic bags over their heads wearing these uniforms and fresh white brand new Nikes, like just out of the box Nikes. And the
Mm.
weird thing was is they were like they all didn't die at once. And I'm reading this article, I'm like, what do they mean they all didn't die at once? They had
Right.
bags over their heads, so they were suffocating. So they would just sit there with someone else under them in the bunk or something. There was a dead person behind under them, and they just sat there and waited it out until they couldn't breathe anymore. Like people decayed slow, like they found the rate of their death was based on I guess the decaying state the body was in, and they could tell
Mm.
that this body died 12 hours before, this body died 2 days before. So that means you're fucking sitting there with a plastic Ziploc bag on top of your head for 2 days while Jim's dead and he died on the first day, and you're wishing you were Jim because you're sitting there with the plastic bag on your head. But then I was like, why the white shoes? They all bought uh, fresh, brand new Nikes because they believed when the aliens came that their shoes would go with them. I'm like, they were your transport. Like, I get
Right.
shoes make the man, but damn.
Mm. We all know we're supposed to actually have towels for that time, not shoes.
Yeah.
Silly bastards.
I honestly, if there's aliens out there, I hope it's friendly. I just want to be like, hey man, what's up with the ass thing? Like, I get it. Some people are into that type of stuff, but I'm not. Not about that.
And that kind of goes into what you were talking about with Sam, with Paul. Just like, yeah, because they're really sexual beings. Just maybe not so much for me. Thank you very much.
All that freak inside that little body
Yeah, exactly.
really brings into perspective on what's the greater meaning of things. Most people want to find, I want to find the cure to cancer. I want to have world peace. I just want to know if aliens are that obsessed with my ass, because honestly, I'm not about it. Anything that comes out of there is never good looking. Just saying.
Maybe
Just
they still haven't figured out that's the wrong hole.
oh yeah. Well, I mean, everything does come down to poop. Every time you know something's severely wrong with you, a doctor's like, "Let me look at your stool." I'm like, "Okay, okay." You don't want to check the urine first? Like, you didn't buy me dinner or anything? Come on now. I
Maybe
like
that's you, because I get a lot of blood tests, so maybe that's just stuff that's happening with you, mate.
he says, look, you can do blood work, I can do a thermometer check, I can also, whatever. I'm like, let's do a stool test. Like, we don't need to do that. Let's do a stool test. Why? Because I want to show you what I can create, good sir. I eat a lot of vegetables, and let me
I'm
tell
proud
you
of my
something.
poo.
I am proud. That's what I was born to. I was born. I think there was a book on that. Be proud of your poo, or is it everybody poos?
Oh yeah, I don't know exactly the title, but I think I know the kids one.
Yeah, the
Like,
kids book.
yeah,
Yeah,
which you should be.
it's an important way to go. You got to learn how to flush the toilet, and with this pandemic situation going on, I think what's needed is obviously toilet paper because it's supremely low. Um,
Oh, there's a connection there.
yeah, don't look. I already told Sam that before this whole thing started, I was always talking about like the government would try and distract you and then release secret information or
Mm-hmm.
something when you were like didn't really care. Well, before this COVID situation, like a few weeks before, I had a podcast with a stock marketer, and he was talking about the stocks going up and down, and I'm sitting here trying to soak in the information, like, all right, what the
Yeah.
fuck, like, but I was like, okay, so what about the toilet paper stock? And he goes, what about it? I'm like, that's got to be the safest stock to invest in because it never goes up and never goes down. He goes,
Mm.
yeah, it's probably a safe one to go. It really never changes. It always stays the same. Cut to 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later, COVID comes out and stock for the toilet paper thing is just increased so much because nobody can get a hold of it now.
Maybe you're a little psychic.
I
You,
feel like
to think,
Nostradamus. I'm
yeah.
Nicolas Cage in the movie Sam was mentioning about the book and knowing. If you could predict future events, would you want to predict future events?
Can I change these future, or do I just have to watch them happen?
Um, I don't know. I feel like you can't change them. You just know about them.
Then no, nah. Ignorance is bliss. Then.
But if you technically, it's not changing them. If you warn somebody about them, they have to take the action.
Yeah, that would still be affecting the change, though.
I mean, you're not physically allowed to do anything. You can still like
You're
call
physically allowed.
somebody. Because then people have to
would
believe you,
would
and
people
seeing is
believe me?
belief.
Yeah.
Yeah, so seeing is believing. So like you're like, don't get on that train. It's gonna crash. All right, sure. And they get on the train and it crashes. It's like you can keep warning people. They're gonna do their own damn thing. If you tell
Mm.
me and I witness you predicting something and it coming true, and then you tell me, don't step on that crack or you'll break your mother's back. I'm like, don't fucking tell me how to live my life, okay? I'm gonna learn. Step. Okay, another one. If
Yeah.
you could pick any cryptid to become real, not one that you enjoy the most, but any of the ones that you feel like might change the way people think about these types of stories, maybe believe
Hmm.
into it more, one that would be more beneficial to society. I look at Nessie, the Loch Ness Monster, as if we use that to help maybe clean up some of the oil in the ocean, maybe finding
Yeah.
a way to be able to breed these types of things to create a better form of transportation, or maybe finding ways to, instead of using ships to carry oil, we could use Nessie. Nessie's not going to sink.
I like that. My first thought was more aerodynamics, so it'd be more the flying cryptids, like we were talking about before, Mothman, maybe even dragons. Because how the hell does that make sense?
Githera
Mm.
from
Right
Godzilla.
there, you go. Yeah, definitely. Cthulhu, even then.
Ooh,
Yeah, I
I
think
like
that
that
kind of
one. That
aerodynamic science would be awesome.
that one is probably the most badass one, Cthulhu. Um,
Yeah.
but I saw the Billy and Mandy version of it. So Cthulhu to me was like this weird thing that was like like screaming constantly all the time. So that's how I see it now. But I mean, that's true though. What about the Kraken? Is that technically a cryptid? Because we have giant squids.
Well, the Kraken being so much larger, yes. But then that is kind of the amazing thing about a small percentage of cryptids, like the giant squid, that was once considered just a myth. Occasionally, it does turn out to be true, and not surprisingly, it's usually when it's underwater. So much undiscovered there. So yeah, Kraken could be real.
Now it's got me thinking. All those
Yeah.
ships and all those sailors. I mean, the whole idea that mermaids were real was that these guys were spending so long on a ship, eventually missing their wives, missing their families, that they would start to
Mm.
fantasize ideas, and they would start to see these creatures out in the ocean. And they would end up going out there and pursuing after them and end up drowning.
Yeah.
Their mind playing tricks on them. It's a lot of strange things that happen into the world, and I think that's what makes it very, very interesting too. It's actually part of the reason why I really want to spend a lot of time traveling,
Hmm.
mostly just to be able to enjoy all these fantasies and folklore, these stories from the boogeyman to
Yeah.
the Clurican, for instance, or the Clorichian, whatever you want to call him. He's known as the leprechaun's drunk cousin. That just literally he turns your beer sour. He basically, you know,
Damn him.
Yeah, exactly. He does basically tears up your inn, does anything
Mm-hmm.
possible to make sure you don't get any business, make sure you have misfortune all the time. But if you give him offerings of alcohol, he would fill up all your pitchers. He would make your beer taste like gold. He would do all these things,
Mm.
and that led to a whole big movement in like Ireland, where people were leaving plates of steak and beer and wine under their like in their cellar, hoping that this thing would come by and eat it, and there would be an offering, like we do with Santa Claus. I mean, we could
Yeah.
leave cookies and hot cocoa out, but I know who really bought me that bike. It was not Santa Claus. It was my Uncle John. Smelled of cigarettes. But I mean, it's funny too because like to see you guys, obviously you guys have a good camaraderie when it comes to the podcast and everything. I listened to a few
Mm.
episodes, and I think that's what's needed out
Thanks.
there because it's fun, right? I mean, better than
Yeah.
anything you can do on a date night, right? I mean, come on. Do you really want to
We
sit and
can't really
watch?
do date nights right now.
Yeah, but do you want to sit and watch Game of Thrones? I mean, that gets boring. I rather instead of watching Peter Dinklage, I'd rather be talking about some cryptids.
Exactly. Exactly. And definitely oh, like before we were doing the podcast and before we were in lockdown, we would also do things like visit graveyards at night. We have a group of friends and we would try to find any evidence of ghosts. Here's me, probably the just the no, of course that's just a sound. It's the wind. Can we move on to something else? But still, I found that really fun to do. And that was another one of our day nights.
Do you enjoy like the kind of the spooky side of things too, like going to the actual places, like maybe like a haunted house, or
Mhm.
now do you have a certain experience? Like I had, I'll give you one of mine that might help you kind of see if you
Please
have
do.
one. But I remember um I was probably 15 years old. Me and my buddy were skating around this town that I live in called the town of Berlin. It's like an old historic town. All the buildings are all old and mossy. Well, there's like a rundown church, and my buddy's like, "Did you know Indiana Jones is buried here?" And I'm like, "Fuck, what? Indiana Jones is buried here?" He's like, "Yeah, there's a Indiana Jones. He's buried over here." I'm like, "Okay, where's the proof? I'll show you his gravestone." Okay,
Mhm.
all right, let's go check out the gravestone. And this was like probably around midnight. Um, we went over to his gravestone. I swear to you, there was a gravestone that said Indiana Jones.
What?
Yeah, it legit said Indiana Jones. It's like, oh, it's probably someone named after him. He goes, yeah, you don't think it's the actual Indiana Jones. It's just someone named after him. I'm like, that's nuts, man. That's crazy. I did not believe you. Then these bells went off, and the church bells, and this church is run down. It has not been used, but I guess they're on a timer still or something. But it was
Yeah, yeah.
bong, like just super loud. And I mean, the air was like, you could feel the static in the air. Like it was just that weird kind of warm, cool feeling of like a summer night or something.
Mhm.
And like both of us just looked at each other, and I mean, we had skateboards in our hand. We said, "Screw that!" We ran with our skateboards. We
Yeah.
literally ran all the way to his house, like almost a good mile away, just on like, like just breathing super heavy because it just scared the living shit out of us. We're in this graveyard, and these bells just start going off. It's late at night. It's like whoa, and it just had our minds running, like, oh my god, something was gonna happen, like zombies or something.
Mhm. For me, uh, I grew up on a little island off the coast of Australia, and there was these bunkers from I think World War I, two, World War II, and everyone on the island, everyone across Australia knows that there are ghosts in this place. So it would be a place we would often check out, and we would every time we would be there, we would try and get drunk and just chill and everything, but you never felt alone. You always felt like there was someone there. And we never really saw anything, but camera wise, always was taking photos of each other, selfies, that kind of thing. And there was a few times where those shadow people, we would see something in the background that we could just not explain. That happened quite a few times.
There was a old comedy sketch I saw, and I wish someone would make this as an invention instead of using. There's the new Ghostbusters that's coming out. That's a cool
Mm-hmm.
way, finding that little ECT thing or whatever the thing is that they use to be able to find ghosts, the beeping, the clicking, whatever that is. Um, there was a skit of an app where the app would show you ghosts. So you would hold up your phone
Oh,
and
yeah.
you would be able to see ghosts. And this dude was like, "This is a ghost finder app." And he holds it up to this guy and he's like, "Oh my God." And the guy's like, "What?" And he goes, "You're never going to believe this. There are ghosts that are all around you right now." He's like, "What?" And he was like, just it was be cuts later of it through the day where he's just watching this dude through his phone. Like, dude, they're still there. And he's like, "Can you tell him to go away? Seriously." "Oh my God." And he's like sitting on a couch. He's like, "What now?" And he goes, "This ghost is taking his nuts out and he's teabagging your head." And he's like, "What?" And he goes, "Oh my God, get him to stop." And he's like, "I can't, man. Oh my, oh." And like, it's got it on video and he's recording it. And like, he's like, "Get off me, get off me." He's like, "Oh," like this. He goes, "Now you're slapping his balls." And it's like just back and it was the funniest thing. And I was like, "Oh my God, that's a funny idea." But that is a really good thought, though, to be able to record things. I mean, how many
Mm,
times have you been sitting there and you feel like something's watching you and you start looking around, getting all freaky, getting all weird? Like, well, what's happening right now? Like, you'll
mm,
turn around when there's a wall behind you. Like, that just made my neck hairs stand up. And,
yeah.
it's a lot different. Sometimes, it's really strange, this power we have inside of us, that if someone is actually staring at you, eventually
Yeah.
you feel it and you look up. Um, it happened to me once. I was not being a creeper at all.
Sure, sure, sure.
Um, I was like when I was 16 in Hawaii. No, I was probably younger than that, 15. We went on vacation and the hotel was across, like we had two hotels that were facing right at each other. So our balcony could look across the street and see the other hotel.
Mhm.
On like this, we were on, I think, the 12th floor, and this guy was on like the 18th floor, so he was a little bit higher up. But I would see this like person that'd be standing there like just looking through the shades, like coming down looking at us, and we always had our blinds and curtains open because it's Hawaii. It's nice and you don't need AC, just
Yeah.
open up the window. And I would sit there and look at him like, there's this fucking guy staring at us, like just staring right at us. And I'll
Mm,
never forget, like, I would just sit there and he would just constantly pace back and forth. You could still see it. Like, it wasn't angled up so high to where you could only see like a top of their door. Like, if he was looking off the
mhm.
balcony, it was enough to where you could see a good from like waist up inside of it to his place. And I'm like looking over, I'm like, man, I'm like, he's just walking around his like living room, just pacing and pacing and pacing. And I'll never forget he made eye contact with me after I was
Mhm.
staring for the longest freaking time. And I had never
Wow.
felt so uncomfortable in my entire life. But I guarantee you, that was on like the second night. We stayed there for a full week. Every time I would look out the window, he'd be out there staring. I'm like, oh my God, now he's going to watch me. So then it was like this giant
Yeah.
thing where I was like, somebody's going to murder somebody here, and I'm not going first.
I just would have loved if he was thinking the same thing. He had that prickle on his neck. Someone's watching me. He looks out and there's this teenager. I'm like, oh, I can't. I've got to keep looking at this guy. I'm really worried he's going to murk me. And you're thinking the exact same thing of him.
Just looking at him like, who's gonna do it first? We meet on the street. I'd meet him for some pancakes. I feel like any dispute could be solved over pancakes, like a nice hash brown. Are you kidding me? Come on now.
Mm.
That's what we need to do. We need to open up a cryptid diner. Just start serving hash browns in the shape of Bigfoot and pancakes in the shape of the Mothman. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, every place that there is a cryptid, you can get lunch, dinner, breakfast that has the look of that cryptid on it. It's just guaranteed.
Yeah, my grandma was awesome. She would make like a Star Wars pancakes in the morning. I was like,
Oh,
how do you do this? She's like, it's magic. I'm like, oh, magic's real? Damn, Santa Claus isn't. All right. Well, thank you so much, Summer. I really appreciate your
thank
coming out and
you.
doing the podcast. Do you want to plug your shows? Well, you plug it again for
Yeah,
everybody.
I will plug it as often as I can. Yeah, me and my partner Sam are from Campfire Conspiracies, a new show. We talk about anything you would around a campfire. Cryptids, aliens, any kind of conspiracy theory you may have. Definitely let us know if there's anything in particular you would like to do. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Email us at campfireconspiraciespodcast@gmail.com. And yeah, please just come on board. Join us for a campfire.
Oh, join us for a campfire. I like that.